Welcome to episode 4 of the Brain Jar podcast. We're back again with return guests across the board. Unfortunately, we couldn't get a full slot, but you know what? 3 people means we can maybe get a bit more nuance and in-depth discussions here. To go over the format in a brief moment, it's a 90%, 50%, 10%. You decide how hot your takes are. You can say something you just want to talk about, or you can go a little bit spicy, say something that you think people will disagree with. It's really up to you to decide. So, in case you need introductions, we got Heseltine. Say something for yourself.
Yo, I'm back.
He's
Got
back.
some more takes. I'm ready to go. Let's go.
Indeed, and we got Sift.
Congratulations. I'm the token blamer.
Indeed. We're all gamers here. We all play Counter-Strike Global Offensive because CS2 is terrible. Am I right? Loba? Is Loba in my comments? Anyway, last time I started, I think I'll hand it over to someone else to start this time. Heseltine, you go first. Get your 90% out of the way.
In my opinion, 90% chance if CS gets to be at these Olympic Saudi games in 2025, Russia will just steamroll if they can send their best players. And the 5 that I've picked based on just pure fit are Monacy, Donk, Chopper, Magix, and Magnojez. I think they will just, if they actually show up, which to be honest, I doubt that I don't even think CS is going to get selected to play these Saudi Olympic games. I think Valve are just going to tell them to fuck off, basically. But if they do, by some miracle, get to do this with CS, and if Russia can actually send their best players, and also I did look at what the current stance of IOC is kind of, I think they were pretty against Russia playing at their games, so they'll have to play under a neutral flag or whatever. But if they can do it, I think they're just going to roll. I don't think there's any country that can assemble a better 5-man lineup than Russia, not even close, especially when Monacy and Donk are both just so far, in my opinion, so far ahead of every other player, at least right now. I think that's kind of, but in my opinion, there's 90% chance that happens. I don't think, I haven't gone through all the best possible lineups of other countries. I don't know if anyone can counter this with a spicy opinion of what country would have a sleeper good team, but I think it's almost a guarantee that would happen if they got to play that. So what do you guys think?
Well, I think you've kind of cheated with this one because the number 1 team right now is almost 5 Russia players anyway. And you could literally slot in Perfecto for that and it would be that lineup. You don't even need to make a star lineup of Donk and Monacy and everything. And that lineup would probably still win as it is winning now. So it's kind of, you've snuck this one in. Now, as for the practicality of that, I can't speak to it. I'm sure there's a bunch of, hoops and little intricacies that you end up having to work with. And in the first place, Counter-Strike being selected is probably pretty unlikely just because, I feel like it'd be more likely that VALORANT gets selected than Counter-Strike, if we're being completely honest. But assuming that it does go ahead, I think that it just tracks. Now the question is if it's going to be worth playing. How much are they actually going to put money into it is the actual question. I think because in a roundabout way, your take kind of, for it to be true, it has to be millions of dollars prize pool for the best players in the world to actually go out of their way to make it happen. Because if it's an ISF TL prize pool and they're not going to put that much effort into it, then I think it might not happen just because they won't send their best.
That's fair.
They're not sending their best.
Exactly, right? But
sorry, terrible joke.
Yeah, but it's hard to disagree with it if it happens in the way that people would assume an Olympic CS would happen, which it probably won't. That's the most practical dampener on this opinion, is that your if has so much riding on it that all the work is done in the if. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's why I built it that way, because I think it would be such an unlikely thing for the best players to show up to this event anyway. Yeah. But if they did, the take is looking pretty good.
Now I think about it though, couldn't Denmark actually do pretty good?
Denmark could do. I was just about to jump in with that. Is the only thing I have. I think the first year or so, if CS were to be a part of it, it wouldn't really be able to, because there's only there's a lot of split between players' nationalities between different like countries. It's very rare that you have like a full national team, and like the split of players and different kind of way that it works out. Honestly, you've got Denmark with like Astralis and, well, used to be Heroic as well, and you've got the Russian teams. And honestly, beyond that, even America's having issues with like fielding a full team of Americans.
Well, it's been like that for a while for America,
As
hasn't it? How long? When was the
yeah,
last full
but I mean,
American on not even not North American, just like U.S. American team?
The last
I
relevant
mean,
one might have
before
actually
Twist was on
been
Liquid.
the last relevant one might actually have been the Boston Cloud9
Yeah,
lineup
exactly, right?
because that was full USA.
Yeah. And then of course the Brazilian teams.
That's
But
true.
that's like three countries really which could participate. I mean, the rest of them, I mean, UK, you've got like 3 players in the pro scene total, let alone enough to fit into a team. In like the proper pro team.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I
yeah.
know we've got Endpoint, but
I
you know,
just thought
come
I
on.
just thought of another angle as well, just about in here. I thought like because you know what's going with the ISF thing, you hear like murmurs about it. For the teams that have enough players at the top and teams at the top where you can make like multiple top teams from that region. Top teams being like top enough to compete for the spot at the Olympics. So like Brazil would have
Yeah.
multiple, Russia would have multiple. If theoretically they didn't combine 5 and take the best, because who's going to decide who's taking the best, right? In the first place. So there would probably be some sort of like weird way of deciding who's gonna go. Because if it also becomes
Well, I mean,
yeah,
theoretically, it wouldn't be under any existing teams like or orgs like thing. I mean, the same way that it's done in football. You don't have like Manchester going up. You
yeah,
have
but
the
like
England team.
wouldn't orgs want to fight to be like we are the thing? You know what I mean? Wouldn't like
Oh
for
yeah,
example, if it's right now, if it's like Spirit, but VP is already full Russian, wouldn't VP want to be like, we are at the Olympics, it's our team, like, whereas Spirit, you
yeah,
know, they might want to just make one substitution instead of letting Donk go to another team that then is like the Russia team or like the non-flag team, whatever, and then
yeah.
compete essentially neutrally, and they have to like they do like the pretend thing, like, oh, we're at the Olympics, but it's just Donk. So like I don't there's I feel like there's just now that I think about it, it's actually harder and harder for that to be 100% true, especially in the Russian case.
Yeah. I think that if it weren't, you know, obviously I have kind of bias against Saudi Arabia in general, really. But if it were done properly, a World Cup really could, like an esports Olympics in theory, could encourage a lot more people to, you know, give it a go, give esports a go, and we might see a rise in like, you know, in local teams, because at the moment it's very much international based, which isn't a bad thing, but in terms of the player base is still very, very, very tiny. Like what we have, supposedly according to Valve's website, what, like 100 million players of Counter-Strike 2, but of that, there's what, like 1,000 people in tier 1,
Yeah,
less.
but I mean, you end up.
Well, definitely less than 1,000 in
Oh
tier
yeah,
1, but you know, in pro CS.
yeah. Well, we have like some thousand, like low thousands to mid thousands, something like that.
Yeah,
But I mean, I don't think it's gonna. Even if it becomes that scale, I think it would. It might maybe in the areas where LAN cafes is still a viable thing that might bring back LAN cafe
yeah.
environments, but
Which should be sick. I mean, one of the biggest reasons that UK has so few like pro players is because the environment in the UK is just absolutely atrocious for pro play. There's like 2 events a year, which you can go to, and like events with like any sort of, well, anything really. And
That'd be
LAN
like
cafes
Epic
are
LAN
basically
and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Epic LAN and Insomnia. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And really, and beyond that, there's like no LAN cafes. It's just really not a part of. It's not a possibility, a viability for most people.
Yeah, it's the same
So
here as well.
something like a World Cup could definitely, if it could incite, more local tournaments. That's why I really am hopeful for the kind of
Yeah, because then
non-franchising and
then
stuff.
the sponsors might consider coming to local areas because then there's a pathway. There's like
Yeah,
a there's more sense to it than doing it now, where you're not gonna get anything out of it really. So from that angle,
yeah,
talking about the general concept of it, I think it could be despite where it's coming from, despite what it might mean otherwise, it could be good in that
yeah.
sense. But I just have zero faith that it's ever gonna work in like a real sense.
Oh, yeah. Like realistically, it's not, but it's that hopeful side of me being like, maybe UK CS will get like a competitive team.
I mean, nothing's stopping them
Or
to be fair. They
everything's stopping them. There's too much egos in pro
Yeah,
CS
but like
for UK.
ego. I don't think egos will change really. I don't like that's gonna be a constant, right? Yeah, I think that's about it. In terms of the base take, like, let me just quickly think about it. Denmark, what's the best? Forget the best Russian team. I think we can all generally imagine that's just like a crazy firepower lineup, right? Like you said before.
Um,
Like, what's the
Yeah,
best Danish
I mean,
team?
Astralis already, if you take the Astralis lineup currently as it is as a base, that's already pretty good. You can
Yeah,
definitely do some big upgrades, but obviously you would have Device. He's
I think you
far and away the best
do you
AWPer
put
in
Dupree
Denmark.
and
Like,
or Magus in there?
that's a difficult question because it's been, you haven't really. I mean, I was about to say you haven't really seen them in top tier pro
You
CS
kind of
for a
have.
while, but I mean, you have, but I mean in terms of you've seen them on fucking Falcons and
Well, Falcons. I mean, listen. You don't. First of all, Falcons players might get top billing for other reasons, but who knows?
Yeah. But
Also, I
I don't
just
know,
looked at
like,
Magus. He's had 4 events in a row in the gray
He's been bad, like
yeah.
straight up, which is
ever since
kind of
Dupree
shocking.
joined.
But it
Actually,
doesn't make us
Yeah.
usually have a. I think he's switched to a more supportive role since Dupree
well, he
joined,
must
though,
have
didn't
because
he?
he went from 1.12, 1.13 to 1.00, 1.00. But like,
And he always did have a more supportive
yeah, but
kind of
the
role
whole
on the
point
old
is the whole selling
Astralis
point
as
of
well.
Magus was that he was a supportive guy who could still put up like good enough ratings to be like,
Good
yeah,
numbers, yeah.
and that he'll have those impact moments. Like if he's not putting up a if he's not putting up more than 1.03, then like there's no
Yeah.
like what he has like.
I mean, alternatively, Dupree is
Yeah,
hitting
Dupree
1.17.
seems like worth it to have on the team, whereas Magus, I honestly don't know if Magus is worth it to have on the team.
Yeah.
To make
Although, honestly, like, I'm not sure who.
is
Let me
Bro any
just
better? Let me check.
refresh my mind.
Listen,
Oh, Bro,
if
yeah, you definitely swap him out for
Do
Bro.
you though?
I
Bro is
think
at 0.95
No,
right
but
now.
like recent form is actually not
Stats.
that bad. He
Yeah,
in Astralis
he has been
especially, it's not
improving.
that bad. But like, it's tough.
It's
It's comparable, and then
1.05
Magus
land
has this
last 3
experience.
months.
So then,
Yeah, and I think I definitely don't think you get rid of Stown and Yabi. Stown and Yabi, they're doing great online, and recently I would say that this actually leads to a point later
yeah,
on. But I think their LAN performance, especially with crowds, it's always been a weak point before, but they are upgrading.
yeah.
I
I mean,
think like
I agree. I agree.
I'll have to look at the stats, but I from the eye test at least, it looks like they've been improving.
Yeah, I think so. Then I guess the team is what: Device, Down, Yabi, Dupree, and Magus, which actually doesn't sound half bad.
I feel like there's that's I feel like there's a lot of lesser known Danish. I mean, it's always kind of a potluck, but like Denmark is so full of talented players. Like you don't want to just focus on the people who've been,
Yeah, but like,
hallmarks for the last 10 years.
but
But
then you have
off the
to
top of my
name
head,
someone,
yeah.
right? Like that's the thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Like I wouldn't risk putting any like young talent for like one World Cup game. Maybe in half a year or in a year, everything changes. I think it will. Right?
Yeah.
I think in a year I wouldn't take Megask at all. But
No.
like now, for like immediately, that's the lineup I would say. But like in terms of the overall question, I think we've. I don't know. I don't know if 90% is.
Glaive, maybe. I mean, Device has been looking really promising.
I would.
As an IGL for where he is, for how early of an IGL he is.
Yeah.
I think Device is really good.
Yeah, but we're also getting
for
Zonic
him
back,
being
right?
an
In
IGL
this
for like
theoretical
6 months.
question, we're also getting Zonic back.
Oh, definitely.
And then I think
yeah,
with Zonic and Device, I think it's way better than what they got right now.
Yeah, God. I mean, you saw this is a massive sidetrack, but there was like a visible massive difference when Astralis got
Was it Raga you're saying or
fuck Rugger. Yeah. So them with like Device working together with like an actual T1, you know what I mean. Like
yeah, of course. No offense.
no offense to Rugger, but like if you have the opportunity to take Zonic,
Yeah.
you take Zonic.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. Heseltine, I don't think it's 90% though. I think it's lower than 90%. I think it may be like
What if every country can send their like all-star squad?
Yes.
I think
I think
you win on
to
a
be honest,
technicality because there's like 3 countries which can form a decent team.
Hey, we're
3
forgetting about
regions.
one country though, Mongols.
That's true,
they
but
can
when the
send it.
Mongols, we can get like second place, grand final Spirit versus Mongols essentially.
They have the
Yeah.
advantage of having loads of chemistry.
Of
So
course,
there's a world.
But don't forget, you'll have the last chance Brazil team with the old classics.
Oh, they'll send the LGSK team.
Yeah, exactly. They'll send that team. Yeah, Quesarado,
Bring
Furious
them back
contract
from
with
the
Quesarado
dead.
prevents him from leaving even for the Olympics. So
Yeah.
he's stuck in there forever. But I don't listen. I'm just gonna. I don't think it's 90%. I think it's 70% at most. I think even if you dump all the firepower, I don't think it works.
I mean, I think a team with Donk and Monacy together, like
I just
even
think we're
if you have the
dreaming. If we, I don't know though.
I don't know, but I'm leaning more towards with Heseltine on this one. That like, I just even if you have a atrocious like IGLing, which we've seen with the Russian IGLing, they have good IGLs.
Well,
with Donk and Monacy on the same team, I genuinely just don't see a way for like any other national team, like a team made of just the same, nationalities, to really compete. Because like
we could
that
also
level of firepower.
We could also somehow try and put Carrigan on this Danish lineup if that works for anything. But
yeah,
I don't know. I feel like his Danish might even be worse than his English at this point. Like, how long is he?
Yeah, I mean it's.
Yeah.
It's. I mean he could be coach.
I don't know if I would take him over Zonic right now. Let's not run a Taz just because he's
This is a separate thing. Maybe I should save it for
I think we'll save it because I think we should move forwards as well. Because we're only one take in. We've already spent so much time. But you know what? That's the beauty of discussion. Anyway, I think I'll go next. I'll let you go your 90% last shift. So so we got one season left, 2024. We're coming up on the end of the player break. This should release before World Cup, the EWC, whatever starts, and then we have Sky Sports, etc., etc. I think there's a 90% chance Simple doesn't join a CS2 team full-time, including NaVi, a CS2 team full-time for the rest of this year. And clarifying, not only including the possibility of him being bought out or playing for another team, but including if he rejoins the starting lineup, I don't think either of things are going to happen. I think at this point it's pretty clear nobody is willing to pay whatever Simple is being valued at NaVi. If you think back to the Falcons discussions earlier, when he stood in, Zonic had that interview where he said, I don't want to spend this much money and have this much pressure on the lineup to purchase Simple. And then I think there was like an undercurrent of like, it's the value proposition just doesn't make sense. If Falcons is refusing to buy Simple, who's going to buy Simple? we're gonna really gonna have to dig deep to find an answer, right? If you compound that with the fact he's an unknown quantity, he's gonna have a huge ego. He's gonna want to be played around, and you can argue whether that's like rightfully so or not rightfully so. And then he's also going to cost a fortune, obviously. I think most people will agree he's not going to be playing a different team this year, right? He's not going to be playing on a team that's not NaVi for all those factors. And now we have to get into, is he going to substitute in for NaVi? Now I'll get into what I consider like permanent a bit later, but I think Blade's a smart man. I think if they were going to do it, they would have done it already. They would have done it now, moving into the season. They would have announced it. It's a hype thing to announce, so they would have announced it as soon as they knew it was going to happen. Simple was back. But I think their resurgence of that Blast of him, Blast London before the player break, I think it suggests that they're actually going to keep this lineup. Now you can, I'd say it's probably a bit of a shame just from an excitement perspective, because I don't actually think this team is going to win the major or anything again. But I think if you think about Blade's mindset, team focus, tactical, Immer's being built into a secondary caller, right, from interviews. That last part alone means I don't think Immer's being replaced for Simple, because Simple's not going to be doing secondary calling immediately fresh into CS2. From what? FPL games when he's raging? What secondary calling experience does he have? He has like no in-game experience. Like he's a veteran, but like calling-wise, he's not going to have that much from the beginning, right? And so replacing Immer, we would love it, but it makes no sense from the system they're building. Replacing JO right now, it makes no sense. I think we can agree. Replacing Wonderful, at this point, as an AWP, I'll put this to you before I continue. Would you rather have Simple or Wonderful on the AWP?
Wonderful 100% right now.
Yeah.
Even though he's like a little overrated, I'm still taking him.
Exactly.
He just fits the system better.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
And so I don't think Simple himself. I think if Blade told him, I think we can replace you for Bit, I think Simple would go, I'm not replacing Bit. I'm playing with Bit or you're not playing with me. I think Simple would say that, unironically. And plus, PR-wise, NaVi would not kick Bit for Simple. I think they would want 3.
They could be. I mean, orgs say shit all the time. The thing with IM or Emma, like that could be the plan now for him being secondary
Yes,
caller.
but like,
but they could just decide to replace him with Simple and him not be secondary caller.
that's true, but I think logically, if they're gonna do that,
I agree
they would
with
have
you
done it
largely
already.
about them. Yeah, I mean, I think I touched on this last episode that I don't think any of the orgs are willing to make big changes until after the Shanghai Major. I think that's when we're going to see the big
then
changes.
we're gonna get calendar announcements, etc. Like,
yeah. So while I agree that they're not going to be doing the change before this play break starts, I think you might be caught out there on a technicality with them maybe going to a team after the Shanghai Major, but before 2025.
Is there any events in that time period? There's one event?
But also, it's not a matter of the events. It's also they can just add him.
Yeah, but I am
saying. Is it? Did you say playing or on a roster?
When I say join, I mean he should playing for like a month straight.
Right. So actually playing in games,
more than just one event. I think more than one event. Because one event he could sub in for NaVi for like an emergency, and then we're all like hyped.
Yeah.
But then he doesn't show back up again. Clearly, he wasn't part of the plan. I'm gonna say that doesn't count.
Okay, I was wrong. There isn't a blast after Shanghai. There is.
Did they reschedule it?
I'm just looking on the.
They rescheduled it November 13th to 17th. It's before the.
However, Katowice is just before the Open.
Apparently, the World Final ends on the same day the
Impact League, but that doesn't really count.
Yeah, that's what Simple's gonna play in the ESL Impact League.
ESF World Championship by Riyadh. So I mean, teams are unannounced for that.
Yeah, but Simple. To be fair, Simple could play for, but that's not a team. That's Ukraine.
What?
Because if he plays for the ISF, what's he going to play on though? What team?
It's the World Championship. The teams are unannounced.
No, but the teams that are going to be the nationality teams, aren't they?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. For the ones that aren't already a full lineup.
Who was in the 2023?
Like unless it's like Furia, because they already have full Brazilian, it would be like under a
Yeah,
country tag.
Ukraine withdrew last year, so it's
That because
hard to
that also
tell.
because of the controversy around the money or whatever, like because Russians were participating
I think
and then
because of the war.
yeah.
Um,
But it doesn't look like there's an event after the major.
yeah. So yeah, I think you've got it there in terms of him not playing, but I think he would be added to a roster even if he doesn't play after the major. So I think there's a possibility of him being added before 2025.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna
like
count.
not
I'm not
playing.
if like December 22nd he joins the team, I'm not gonna be like my take is wrong. That's not what I meant. Yeah, but I mean, if we're gonna talk about like generally speaking, like just a bit narratively speaking on Simple, I think right now we're not spoiled for talent. We got Donk, Monacy, Zaiwu, and then we got a lot of sub top, stars we can watch. Nico is still pretty good to watch, all things considered, etc., etc. So it's not that we're waiting for him desperately, but from a legacy standpoint, I think we all want to see him just for this, just to complete the question mark.
Well, yeah, because I think he's been very unfairly rated by like certain fans in that he's played 2 maps, right?
Yeah.
And he wasn't even playing AWP.
Well, it was 3 maps.
And
I think,
he also no, because it was a best of 3 and they lost 2-0.
2-1. Let me check. You check. I'll keep talking.
I could have sworn it was.
I mean, I'll check. You keep
I'll
talking.
check.
Never mind. I flipped it right.
No,
it was a 2-1.
fine.
It was a 2-1.
Ah, my bad.
Yeah, Mirage overpass, Vertigo.
Metasport.
Okay, so
but
Heseltine,
the point being that
so the fact that Simple isn't on NaVi like starting now does just tell me straight up without knowing anything behind the scenes that NaVi are fully on Team Blade for the foreseeable future for a very long time, because it shows to me that Blade, who I suspect has extreme reservations with bringing back Simple due to like lack of form and the environment, like that he can obviously really like poison a team's like chemistry in terms of like how the team's feeling mood wise. They are all in on Blade.
Yeah, just continue. I'll be 1 second. Just keep talking.
Yeah. They're all in on Blade, which I think is really good. I think NaVi deserve actually praise for standing by their coach. It's not clear whether or not Simple's actually like super eager to come back. We don't know that for 100%. He might still be like on his hate CS2 train. I haven't been like following his Faceit profile or anything to see if he's been pugging actively, but there was a long stretch of time where he was like almost totally inactive. But I like the fact that NaVi are willing to stand by their coach that has brought them 2 majors now and probably more in the future without, even though Simple is like the GOAT, obviously, people will forget before CS2 he was on the decline. Like, it was getting ugly. People will also forget that ESL Pro League final where he got actually destroyed by Torzi, who at that time was not even close to Simple's like status. So like, I think it's a great move that NaVi have actually sided with the coach, and I think a lot of orgs would actually bend the knee and let their star player come back from a situation like this before, and I kind of like overstep the coach's authority. But it's clear to me that Blade is like fully running that shit, so good on him.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of players were checking it in, like fully checked out near the end of CS:GO.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that that was more of a case for Simple than a lot of the other players. The issue is we I don't know. I think it's.
I mean, there's only so much we can do.
He was obviously been on a decline since the Ukraine war.
Yeah.
Like that's a fact.
That's facts. Yeah.
If if the war were over tomorrow, who knows how he would
Yeah, but
perform.
I mean, we can't deal with the hypotheticals, right? We have what's in front of us. We have the
Yeah.
story that's being written and that's being written, right? So
Yeah, so I think if he comes back, could he be, top 20 in the world? Possibly. I think if he had that fire in him again to do it, he
yeah,
could. But I don't think he's necessarily as bad as the kind of memes made it out to be, just because of the
no. I
circumstances
mean,
surrounding it. I really don't
anyone
think.
serious.
I know it's
yeah.
I don't think it's a really. It sounds like a stupid argument to make because it is partly a stupid argument to make because he wasn't really trying near the end of it. He was using bloody shotguns for a reason. He shouldn't have been doing that. He's a paid professional. That is pretty stupid fucking behavior. But it
100%.
is the facts of the matter. So yeah, I agree with you that like Navi shouldn't really be adding him back, but I think he should get a second chance.
Yeah,
Like
but we
he's
also
definitely
don't.
got more
Do
to
we have
show
any
us.
information on his contract? I mean, when it ends, I don't think.
I think end of next year, I
End of
believe. I could
next
be wrong
year.
though. Yeah. Also, I
That's
think
gonna be rough.
on the topic of your take, I think it is correct that it's very likely that he doesn't get to play like on another team or like in any capacity.
more
But
than
I
a
think
stand-in.
Navi should do him right and sell
Yeah,
him,
I
and like
don't
and
know
not
about
just like
should
leave him
though.
in contract
To be
jail.
honest, I don't even know if they should at this point. Like, I don't know how.
It depends if he wants it. That's all.
Yeah, if Simple was like chomping at the bit, like he went to Blade every day in his DMs, just like let me back in, let me. I don't think he is though. I don't think he's begging for a chance to come back
He's
in.
not said anything publicly, or as far as I'm aware, on
I
stream,
mean,
alluding to that.
Yeah,
at
exactly.
All.
to be fair, I think that he still has his reservations about CS2. We've still seen
I
some
mean,
literal game-changing, like crashes and stuff in CS2,
I mean, but like
even as recent as
for him, that's an excuse, isn't it? By now, in
oh yeah,
in 2023, maybe you could give it to him. He was like, wait until next year or whatever. Now it's just an excuse. It doesn't actually like.
yeah.
If CS2 was fixed in a click of a finger, Simple wouldn't be like, all right. I said it would be if it was fixed, I'll come back. I'm back. Like it wouldn't work like that. But
I'm not saying he would be back in terms of
no,
performance.
I'm just saying it wouldn't be back at
but
all.
I'm saying in terms
I think he
of
knows that like
him,
by now
he's
he's
fading.
just waffling. Has he even complained about CS2 recently?
No, I think he's just been kind of playing. I think honestly, okay. Here's a bit of a take. I think he's just decided to shut up and grind.
But is he? I don't know. Sure,
And
yeah, sure.
because he was grinding a lot before Pro CS, obviously. Like that's how he came up. That's how most pros came up. But I think he's maybe it's a hopeful take of me, but like I think he's recognized that his skill is just not really at the level it should be. I think he could still hang at T1, just like he's not a Hooksy or something, but for his own critique,
for the standard he holds himself
he
to,
wouldn't
for
want
sure.
He wouldn't want to come back until he can like dominate in like pugs again,
like
right?
we
So
haven't
I
seen him
think
do
he's
that really, like not the way he used
so
to.
I imagine that like he's kind of going at it again and again and again to maybe see if he can get back to that level.
Yeah.
And I don't think we'll see
but
him.
If that's the condition,
I don't. Yeah, to add back onto what you said, I don't think he's going to come back until he sees himself being able to dominate in pugs again, at the very least.
Yeah.
As a kind of measurement of that, because I don't think he's not the sort of person to be satisfied with coming back and just checking in with a 1.1 ratio, 1.1 rating or whatever.
Like to round this off, I think like at the end of 2025's first season, like midway through the year, if Navi failed next season and the season after that, and Simple grinds that whole season while Navi's failing in like the first half of next year, I can see them making the switch this time next year. You know what I mean? If he's grinding and the team's failing, then they'll just be like, let's try him for a season because his contract's about to end. If it doesn't work, then we gave him a chance. Like we can't sell him anyway. If at that point, if he doesn't play, no one's going to buy him with 6 months left of his contract. They'll just wait and then knock on his door after he's a free agent and be like, how much salary are you willing to accept? And then I think that's where it reasonably would end. But now I just don't think it makes sense. Okay. I think we covered that, right?
Yeah.
Pretty reasonable. Okay, Sifs, you got your 90%, right? We're waiting on you.
So yeah, mine is a very CIS region themed 90% today. Mine is a very safe one, I'm pretty sure. That Donk will hit a 1.6 rating across a match, so 2+ maps in a row, in the Esports World Cup. So as of recording, this is the 14th of July.
Is that a take?
This is... It is, because he hasn't yet reached a 1.6... Well, he across a match.
Is that true?
For quite a while, actually. Across a match for a while. I think maybe he did it versus Aurora because he got a 2.3 in one map and then 1.15. But I'm saying like versus a proper like top 10 team. I think the last one.
Okay, let me you continue. Let me check some stats here.
I think the last proper one is maybe Spirit versus Big on March 9th. I'm saying across 2 maps because like the best of one versus Imperial doesn't count. It's also versus Imperial. Versus Aurora, like again, they're not a top 10 team. I'm saying specifically versus like a top 10 team. Yeah, I think that we haven't seen the best of what we could. Oh shit, no, he did it versus Heroic. 16th.
I mean,
all right, this was a rushed take, and I'm already wrong.
No, I mean,
fuck it. No, I'm gonna upgrade it.
Pivoting.
I think we're gonna see another 1.7 event.
Ooh,
okay, well,
before the end of the year.
For 90%, that's you went from like 200% true to like we got to think about this. And by thinking about it, I mean I don't think it makes sense, but
I think we're gonna see. No, I can't back by that.
Because now there's other players on the team doing things. It's kind of like at the beginning of.
I think we could see a 1.6 event. A 1.6 across an event.
I think a 1.5. I'll give you 90%. We're doing like an auction here. Like I'll give you 90% for 1.5. I think I could see that. He absolutely dumpsters MIBR, farms rating.
He already got a 1.5 though. Blast Premier Spring Showdown. And he got 1.47 Betboon Daka.
Yeah, so then, well, it's a 90% take. I mean,
yeah, I guess
you're trying to. Unless you're convinced.
1.55. Let's do it in the middle. 1.55 for 90% chance that he'll get a 1.55 chance. 1.55 or higher on an event.
I think he needs. Well, for that he would need another upset so that he could face someone. Someone weaker in the playoffs. Because it's one round opening stage, you win your first BO3, you're immediately in, right? I assume that's how this thing works. So Spirit beats MIBR, logically should dumpster him. You need Donk to get like a 2+ rating.
I've switched it over from the Esports World Cup to 1.55 before the end of the year. To be fair.
The whole season.
Yeah.
Oh. 90% for the 1.5. What's the season at right now? What's the stat?
There's like 3 events. There's Cologne. There's big events. I mean, there's Cologne Major and World Cup.
Let me just check.
And Blast.
Big events 2024. He's at a 1.41. With no team filters, which I think would I mean, I'm not putting team filters on this because then the maps go down quite a bit, and also the odds of that. If you top 20 teams 1.55, I mean, that's a whole different challenge, which you could do, but like let's not dream. But he has a 1.41 now. To get 1.55 over the season, big events, 90%. No, I'm just gonna say no. that's an insane jump up. I don't think he's gonna do that much better.
Right, I think we've got a maybe like a understanding. I don't mean across the entire season. I mean, I think he's gonna hit like
In one event,
let's
you
say
mean?
a one. Yeah, in one event before 2025, I think he's gonna hit a
Oh,
1.6.
Then 90%, yes. I think that's
Yeah.
entirely one.
Yeah, 1.55 across an entire season would be fucking insane.
That would
I
be
was-
impossible.
Yeah, I mean, if for big events, I think it might be just slightly too high. But if we're talking all the LAN events, if he's attending one that he can farm, I think he can do it. But then again,
I think if he's gonna do it, it'll
Yeah.
be this ESWC in his way, because he, as far as I'm aware, I see like the way I know if Donk's like active on Faceit, basically, because I'm subbed to a bunch of like YouTubers that
yeah, the
upload like
re-upload
Faceit
yeah,
demos, and you
Yeah.
can tell if Donk's grinding if there's like 5 of them in my sub box every day, and he's been grinding like pretty hard over the player break. I think he might have had like a week and a
I mean, I
half
just
off.
check.
And he was just straight back on the grind. I even linked a game today where he dropped a 60 bomb in like a double overtime game on Dust 2. So he is on fire at the moment. I think
When did the player break stop again?
I don't remember.
Uh,
Probably like month and a bit ago. Something like June.
wait, I can just check on Donk's
13th.
profile. When was his last event? Blast Premier. When did that end? Fuck.
I also don't
Ended
know how
24th of
much
July.
prep Spirit are
No.
gonna put into this event, but I'm assuming like a reasonable amount.
15th.
I'm assuming they have been grinding, but I feel like their main objective is obviously Cologne, and then after the major. So we'll see. But I think Donkeys might have like another repeat of Kato where he just runs in and just cooks basically, because everyone else has
Absolutely
been
cooked. Yeah.
everyone else has kind of been chilling. You know, I've seen dudes like Rops and shit just like on the racetrack with the
Yeah.
Porsche on his Instagram story. Everyone's going to weddings and shit. So listen, he's
This
been
could be
just
the prime. Yeah.
sat in Serbia just grinding the whole time. So I think if there's any event where this is most likely to happen, it's definitely going to be one first out of the player break. I think it just depends on like how seriously other teams have been taking it, to be honest. But also like, as we know, I've said he's just been grinding, so I think he can do it. I think 90% is very reasonable for that.
I think you've adjusted and you've swerved into a correct take, like by sheer coincidence, perhaps. But
Yeah, I needed some adjustment,
yeah,
but
you made it. Yeah,
eventually, yeah.
I think that's probably enough.
I was trying to look on his
Yeah, go on.
Leaderify, but fucking Faceit wrecked his. They don't allow you to auto upload Faceit anymore.
Yeah.
So
So you need to do it
it
manually.
used to be a really good like indicator of performance for players, but they fucked it. Ah,
It's okay.
bastards.
They'll buy Leaderify eventually. They'll be buying everything, haven't they?
Please no, God, don't even
I'm
don't even
gonna put that
speak that
evil.
into existence.
They'll buy Leaderify, they'll gut it, and then
That's
they'll
gonna be the
integrate it.
next take. 90% Leaderify gets bought by.
Yeah, I should have
Faceit.
saved that one. I might use it next time. That's a good one. Anyway,
Yeah.
I think we can move on. Heseltine,
Yeah.
you had your 50% for moving to 50% already.
Yeah, so I think a 50% chance within 2 years we're gonna have a similar situation to Arvydas Sabonis coming to the NBA, and so I'll explain what that means.
I need
Arvydas
full
Sabonis
context. Yeah.
was a player from Lithuania in like the 80s who was like a 7'3" center who was literally like the best player in the world, but he was like trapped out of the NBA because essentially the Cold War just made it impossible for him to get out of the USSR and compete in the USA. And he basically spent his entire prime stuck outside of the United States NBA. He couldn't play there, and he was just dominating in Europe. Like everyone who watched him play, and the videos we have just tell us that he would have utterly destroyed in the NBA. So what I think is going to happen, and he only got to play in the NBA like when he was like 31 years old, and had multiple like ACL injuries, knee injuries. He was like at that point quite out of shape, but he was still really good, even when he was like that beat up injury wise. He had so many broken bones. The physician at the Trailblazers said that he could qualify for a disabled parking spot because he was that beaten up. But he came to the NBA age 31, and he was just really good, actually. He was like a solid piece for the Blazers, and I think he came second in Rookie of the Year voting. But the take is, basically, I think the thing that like has like taken a lot of talent from CS is Valorant, and I think we're going to have a situation within 2 years that we're going to have Valorant players who had no CS experience come over and start playing CS professionally. Now, I haven't clarified exactly like how high level of a team they'll get to join. Maybe like top 30 they'll end up on. But I think we're going to have a situation within 2 years, 50% chance that we're going to have like a super cracked out player from Valorant who's like disgruntled with like how bad it is over their esport. They only get to play like 13 maps a year. They're going to get sick of it. They're going to grind CS. They're going to come over, and we're going to see that. So what do you think?
So I thought you for a second there, I thought you were going to pivot and talk about how players were being restricted by like partner leagues disappearing and partners existing and then with them disappearing then in CS. But if you're going the switching games route, I think I honestly and I'm actually on board with this. I think 50% is fair, and this is actually biased by like one post I saw, which is this is going to sound absolute nonsense for why I'm agreeing with you, but I saw a post which was like I had some Valorant. I had some people who I played Valorant with who were like Diamond, which is like not crazy impressive at all. They came over to CS. Their game sense and their movement was terrible, but their aim was insanely cracked because it's like taking the like shackles off. They can actually move, shoot. It's like, you know, you're playing the superior version, and suddenly your headshots are like exactly where you want them, and everything's like clicking. And so I think that for one player who hasn't really seriously tried Pro CS, or like in like 2019 they played for like half a year and then COVID hit, they played Valorant and then they grinded and then now they're Valorant Pro. I think for 50%, that's exactly on the money in my book. I think I can see like not from the American region. I'm gonna say it will be from like some random EU or maybe even an Asian player, but that's even more of an off chance. But I could see that like one cracked aim player who doesn't really vibe with like the tactical foundations of Valorant with all the like agents and the counter picks and then like the intricate like, you know, you pick this, I go here, you do that, you this ability, this, etc. I'm kind of butchering it. So if you're watching this and you're like a Valorant fan and you're like, that's not how it is, blow me. I don't know it. So in terms of that, I think you're correct. So I don't actually have much to criticize you on. Sif, do you have any contrarianism left in you?
I think that no, I think that yeah, the Valorant scene, I've not really followed it too much. It's got a very poor scene from the little that I know of it at the moment. I mean, I think one of the big pros has like said they're done for the season and they've played like
Yes, that
what,
was
30
Ethan.
yeah, 30 maps or something like that.
32, 31.
So I think yeah, around that number. Which is crazy for like a year of an esport. Especially if you're meant to be in like a tier 1 sort of team. I think that that's gonna be a driving force behind players, you know, maybe wanting to. I think there's a lot of players out there who play just for money, but I think there's a lot of players out there who play for the love of the game. And you not being able to play as a person in pro play for like the majority of a year is affecting both of those camps, right? Because they're not going to be paid as much.
Yeah,
they're not going to get tournament earnings, and they're also not going to get to play the game, which they would hopefully love to play. I think that's going to switch them over to other games. Would that be CS? Hopefully, I mean. But yeah, Valorant's going to need to increase the capacity of their pro scene if they want to retain pros, because people aren't going to want to play for like a quarter of a year, and then basically have to get a second job to sustain them in between because they're not playing anything.
Yeah, they gotta really lock down that tier 2 like pathway style scene, because we've been cooking. I think people have brought this up multiple times in recent history. I think, but like how the CCTs and these online cups, and then now we're gonna move into more lands next year, and so on and so forth. We've got like a really nice kind of cycle of top pros years ago kind of play in like these lower tier teams and help out with a bit of experience, and then grinders can grind all these cups and make a decent living for themselves, especially if they're living in kind of a European country that you can turn that like prize pool into a more affordable lifestyle for you compared to there is some legitimate complaints talking from like American slash more expensive European countries, even from Australia, like here, right? Like the prize money compared to the cost of living is not always reasonable, right? But in a lot of the countries where you might say someone's grinding non-stop, if you're a non-stop grinder in like an Eastern European region, I don't see the motivation to play Valorant instead of Counter-Strike unless you like have an insane passion for Valorant and you don't love Counter-Strike. Like I can see the reverse happening. I can see like North American players playing Valorant for money, and then European players playing Counter-Strike for money, even if they don't have feel passion about it. I can actually see the reverse effect happening for some reason. So like I just think it makes sense. I just think it makes complete sense. I mean, listen, Riot
Yeah.
could partner with the Saudis next year, and we could have a full tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 season funded courtesy of them. So they might have a few words to say. If you're watching this, Riot,
Yeah.
why are you watching this? Fix your game. But like,
Yeah, like God, if you're watching this,
Yeah.
you've reached true rock bottom as a fucking developer.
I'm just gambling on the fact that Riot Games just don't fix
yeah,
anything, and it just
your
keeps getting
take
worse.
relies on their incompetence, but I think you'd be well served by that.
I'm
I'd
pretty
say
sure. I
I'd say I have a
read in
good
a.
record with that. You know, they ain't
Well,
exactly
also
know
I
what they're
read
doing.
in an interview somewhere that they actively don't want to add like demo viewing
They
for
don't.
the games, which is a vital part
That's
of
crazy.
pro
I'm
games.
gonna just double. I'm gonna look this
Their
up.
opinion might have changed, but I remember reading that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think people are kind of more willing to accept that like players can come back from Valorant. I mean, we've seen Czech come back, but I'm talking about like people with no CS experience coming over. But we'll see. I think it can happen.
Yeah.
I think it's
two
very
years
plausible.
ago, May 19. Steve, to reference this for historical perspective, Steven average game production was 2 years ago. Any other than possible in-game replay systems. Shortly after Valorant's launch, blah blah blah. We were interested in a replay system. The shortest answer today is that there is no plan for a player-facing version of a replay system as of now.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, it was 2 years
Which
ago,
is
and I think they were rumored to be
things
doing
could change in
something.
that time, but Riot have been known for being pretty
Static,
sticky in their views.
But
so yeah, that's a crazy like point to stand on, in my opinion.
it's a crazy hill to die on for sure. Like, but anyway, I mean, we could sit here for 20 minutes shit on Valorant and we could have fun time. But I think
but
it would
that's
be productive to move on if we have.
Yeah.
I think we all agreed, right? I think the 50%.
Yeah,
that's
pretty
about the right
much.
odds as well. I wouldn't put it that much higher.
Yeah.
I think it was me next, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this one depends on. I've finally talked about something Australian, so you may not have that much to say about it if you haven't watched some nonsense Counter-Strike in the Asian region. But I think there's a 50% chance that the new Talon Esports Australian super team, and this is genuinely a super team, you can laugh, provided the EU coach and AWP, so this is my conditional. They must have the EU coach and AWP. Now, even if it's Khan or if it's MHL, like was rumored, I'm taking either or. I think they'll both be fine. There'll be a top 3 team in the APAC region, 50% chance. Now, it doesn't apply if they're missing either the EU coach or the EU AWP. They need both for this to be true. Current rumored lineup, by the way, just so people are aware, is coach DJL. It was Hades, but Hades is obviously in Monty now. Then it was Khan from I think Namiga, and now also rumored some other tweet was like, oh, it might be MHL. So in terms of Australian players, is Azza, Addict, Nedic, and Hazza. These are the 4 players, and they're all riflers, right? So I think in terms of top 2, I don't think you're catching up to FlyQuest in a season. I'm saying by the end of the year already, by the way. So I think you're not touching FlyQuest in one season. I think long term there may even be further discussions, and they can even poach players from FlyQuest because I think Talon can afford. They were thinking of making the Australian super team with JKS and with the other players, along with these imported coaches and ops, but the FlyQuest guys wanted to stick together, and then they found their own home. So I think they have enough money to keep funding this and look for players if the rumors are correct. And I think you're not touching Mongoose. Let's not even discuss it, right? So 3rd spot in the APAC region is very hotly contested right now. We have Linvision, we have Atox, we have Tyloo, and we have like Rare Adam, kind of all in this maelstrom of who's going to come out on top. Now, to address these, Linvision, they look good before they lost G, and right now, if you know Zaka, right now Zaka is open, and that should tell you all you need to know.
No.
All you need to know about where Linvision are going. It's abhorrent. They've just there's nobody else can AWP. G was the best AWPer in the region, and he's gone. So like, and G is the best AWPer. That's alone an indictment of the region. But anyway, Linvision, I'm gonna cut them out of this race personally. And I think Tyloo, they don't really have any calling. Advent isn't even coaching the team. They kicked him, but then he's not coaching because I think the players.
Tyloo don't even have 5 players right now.
They're playing with their own coach, and they're playing with like Zoking. It's like nothing is making sense. I don't think they have the best rifling core. You know, Mosia, Jam Young, Mercury. I think they're all really good. And if they could join up with West Melon, who's the IGL of Tyloo, of Linvision, and they could get G back or something like that. Like if they could get that, then it would be perfect, and I would actually put them over. But they don't have it, and they've been fumbling lineups for a while now, so I'm gonna rule Tyloo out as well. So my serious contender, and this is where I'm putting my 50-50 in, is Atox. I think Atox, they've been improving. They've kept the same 5-man, so they're developing. Annihilation as an AWP has looked pretty good. I don't know if he can necessarily match up to, MHL, but I think he could probably be fairly even with like Khan. I don't think he's going to be that much worse for it to be a huge problem. I think Dobo and Cabal have at this point been pretty experienced. They've been around the block, and I think they'll provide a good backbone. And then you have MIQ and Zesta. This is completely off the top. I didn't even write this down. So this tells you how much of a fucking Asian CS watcher I am. That I can rattle off Atox's lineup from memory. But I don't know that coach, so I am a fraud. But I think that team can really cook. But I think Addict, Hazard, and Nedic are the 3 best riflers not in FlyQuest from Australia's region. Nedic in particular is a real talent individually. Like online, he actually can even farm like 1.5 rating on the Greyhound in history online. But he's a land choker. He's never shown his true form in anything apart from at home with his Coke Zero or whatever. So if anyone can unlock it, it will be an EU coach. I think DJO for this kind of job, I think he's perfect. When he was with Hampus, he had his improvement in T-sides, and that team, of course, had its own flaws, but, for adjusting expectations, I think he'll do great here. And I think Azza should be very receptive to coach ideas. He was with Kassad. I think he was very, like, I'm all ears type of IGL, ready to implement whatever system makes the most sense and do whatever needs to be done. Even if his individual level might be a bit low, I think it'll be sufficient, is my opinion. And I think the aim mechanics are going to be just enough to put him around the same level. So kind of 50-50. They could be better. They could be worse than Atox. What do you guys think?
All right, I'll respond to this first. I don't know what the Chinese scene are doing with a mage around the corner.
It's horrible.
But there is one more team that wasn't mentioned. Rare Atom.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Rare Atom. They have Kaze
Summer,
now.
Somebody, Kaze, Child King, and Ahang. I can't really pronounce that, but they actually have a squad, low key. Like that team is kind of primed to just like overtake Linvision and Tyloo in terms of like being the best Chinese team. I think 50% is actually a very reasonable take. I think I trust your judgment with some of the Australian talent that are on that team. I think low. I think some of them have actual EPL experience.
Yes, I think
if I'm not
all of
mistaken. Yeah.
the riflers do. They have been
Okay.
there.
Yeah, that they I think should have a real chance of making this major in China. I think honestly, MHL is going to average numbers that we've never seen before in Australia and in Asia because it's just going to be crazy. Because he was like kind of just hard stuck at like EU tier 2 forever, but like this will just be different. I think he's going to do really well over there. DJL also like was kind of on semi fraud watch for NIP because but now that we know that it was like kind of Calc just like overriding his kind of authority and just picking players for no reason, in certain cases, I can't remember which one's which, but
Yeah,
it was stuff like Hamper said with the Thorin interview where he would just like sign players that made no sense and then just like do stuff like
Yeah,
that. So I think DGL is definitely in contention for having his time on NIP not counting as well, especially if he makes this major, which I think is very possible. And also to
me
jump
too.
on the Atox train, like I mean, I've watched some of their games. They're not amazing. I think Annihilation's a little overrated, but he's insane in clutches for some reason. That is something I'll give him for sure. And they are actually playing in Pro League before the RMR, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And so that if I'm assuming Atox will just be in Europe for a while, so they'll get to grind, do a boot camp.
Yeah.
They have a chance as well. But I think, yeah, I actually agree. 50% is very reasonable for that.
Sid, have you been watching any of the Asian teams lately?
I have to admit, no. I haven't watched any Pro CS since the player break ended, or started rather.
Well, I mean, I don't think they've
So-
played. Well, there was this like qualifier going on, but
The Blast Showdown qualifier, which the
And
Mongols
even
sadly
before
lost,
then,
but yeah,
I'm
I
not gonna
remember.
lie, I did not. I had exams, and
yeah.
until Mongols came about, I was not interested in the Asian scene. Oh, sorry, I just realized my mic was. Yeah, I've not been particularly interested until the Mongols came about in the Asian scene. They've always been a plucky underdog. Now they seem legitimate, but I'm gonna be honest, I have no knowledge beyond Mongols really, so I can't weigh in.
Yeah, I think if I'm talking about mechanics, I think the mechanics are actually the one thing I don't really have a question about is the mechanics apart from Azza, but I think Azza he should be able to at least do his job minimum standard for this team. I think in terms of Hazard, Addict, and I already talked about Nedic, but in terms of Hazard and Addict, the two of the players, and this is actually the best kind of experiences when I'm playing against them in deathmatch servers, because obviously there's not that many people playing in Australia, right? I'm gonna run into semi-pros and pros, whatever, on deathmatch servers every so often, right? And I don't feel like I'm at a significant disadvantage against most other Australian semi-pros, apart from the FlakWest guys. Those guys are pretty instant headshot, like fear in the server kind of guys. But like, not to put any hate, but I've said this before and I'll say it again. In terms of players like Brace and PZ, who have been on like Vertex and then Bad News Kangaroos, I never felt any fear when they were in the server. I just peeked them. Like, unironically, I would just peek them, and these are professional trying to qualify for the major players, and I would peek them, and that was embarrassing to realize, like, for the region, right? But like Hazard and Addict, I do remember them at least. Like, I had a lot of respect for their aim at the very least, and that's my only question, because they're gonna have to learn the Counter-Strike. Basically, DJL is gonna have to like inject them with the brain waves. It's gonna have to be like, this is EUCS, this is EUCS. You are not an Australian online scrub. Like, he's gonna have to do this like mind washing, brainwashing.
You do not have to rush P.
Yeah, exactly. Wait for
Do
the
not
peak.
push the
Like,
smoke.
exactly. And if they can listen, then everything should line up. But I think they should never listen. I think they've had enough. They've been cocked at the major qualifiers so many times. I think they'll be willing to do anything, to put it that way.
I was just looking at some of the stats of some of the Bad News Kangaroos players, and I just happened to notice that Brace is averaging a 0.76 rating over the last 3 months in Australia.
Yeah, like he's
How
and
can this
he's
be
he's the
real?
next IGL from our region. Like,
Oh god.
Listen, we don't have orbs and we don't have IGLs.
that.
It's more likely I'm gonna show up in these qualifiers at some point, and then we get something better.
You really
Like,
could.
I really
Like,
could.
what is this?
Like it's the state of the teams here.
0.76 in Australia. That's like
It's
I
That's
can't even
actual
believe when I saw
fraud.
that, I was like, that can't be
like
real.
like
And
you-
then
I think
looked
with
at the
seeing that
numbers,
you
I'm
might
like,
understand. I'm not being
nah.
hyperbolic when I say I can aim. I can be like not afraid of these players when I aim against them. Like
Yeah, I believe you now.
yeah, exactly. No, if
Yeah.
you're watching this brace, you
Maybe
know,
I sh-
like listen, you get in the
maybe I
aim
should go
bots.
to fucking Australia, get a like face it level 10 easy.
Yeah, listen. You could, not even joking. You could. You could fly down here and carry me to face level 10. You'd be perfectly fine. But yeah, I think there's not much more else to go into that. I think we 50 or 50%. Hopefully we can get some more something you can actually talk about for once.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, listen.
So my 50% is going to be Astralis will win a big crowd S tier event before 2025.
Oh, let me think. Go on while I check the events. State your case because I'm not
And I
sold.
specified big crowd because specifically, obviously, Yabby and Stown have had these issues with kind of big crowds before. But
Yeah.
I genuinely think they have been improving ever since the major. If you look at their stats, like they have had, I think, positive ratings for every single event since the major. Let me just get up the stats. Yeah, since the major, Stown went 1.37, 1.18, 1.16, 1.21, 1.16. Yeah, and Yabby, I mean, he got 1.0 in Blast Premier, but the others have all been 1.15 plus since major, which obviously was yeah, a true shame that they couldn't reach that. Like if anything, just for the storyline of Device reaching you know, a major in Denmark.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
But
I'll respond to
I
this.
think-
if
Yeah,
you
you go ahead because I'm pretty vehemently disagreeing, but you go on.
I think it's hilarious how life works sometimes because as I'm looking at the results for Astralis here, and in this season it feels like Device is just going through what he was going through in 2015 again. He's just getting semi-finals over and over. But I actually think I sort of agree. I think it is I think a lot of things do need to go right, which kind of makes me lower my percentage personally of this happening. But if they get a good bracket and they cheese their way into the semis through a good group stage run,
Ease their way.
listen,
This
that wasn't a
I
diss on
don't-
Astralis. That was a
My
diss on the
boys.
six player playoff format. That's not a diss on Astralis.
Yeah, but you
I
did say
think if
cheese
they
their way.
can
Like you
if they
think
can
they won't
get to
earn
the
it.
if they can get to the like the top seed semi-finals and they get a decent matchup there, finals, anything can happen sometimes. But I think it is doable. Like it's not. I think maybe I'd give it like 35, but it's not as impossible as people
I
want
would
to
give it
believe.
10%. I'm not on board with Astralis at all. Okay.
I'll also add. I'll add
we
this
got
also.
a bunch of Astralis haters here.
No.
That is
I'll
I'm
add this
loving the
also.
Discord.
Yeah,
the
go
way
on, go
the
on.
reason why this is actually kind of plausible. There are a lot of like some of these teams in the top 10 are not that good.
I don't think Astralis are that good either.
But that's the
you.
thing. They can beat a lot of these. I think they can beat VP easily.
Yeah,
I think depending on the situation, they could take down Mouse Sports. If Zai was having a terrible game, they could take them down. The only team I don't think they can take down is like I think FaZe would just destroy them. I think they
You're
can.
forgetting
They
about
actually have a chance
G2.
against NaVi in a playoff series. They do not have a chance against Spirit though. If they ever meet them, they're cooked. That won't work. But it depends. They
I
could
don't
get
know
knocked
about
out. Who knows? But it's not impossible. I kind of agree.
I think they've gone versus Spirit already. Let me
check.
Yeah, I think
they
it's not as
played-
unlikely.
They beat him. Well, this was CS:GO. They played a BO1 in the RMR and lost 13-11, and since then nothing.
Yeah, they've not even played since
They haven't
then.
played
But
Spirit
yeah,
best of 3.
I actually don't. I think because teams didn't make very proactive roster moves in this off season, and Astralis have just kept building synergy throughout all this.
Yeah, I think that
I actually think it's
that's
not
part
as
of the
unlikely
reason.
as people would want to admit.
Yeah. Okay. Let me get my
Yeah.
hater on. Okay. I don't think Astralis are going to improve. I honestly think with this current lineup they've reached their ceiling. I don't think Device has it in him to improve his quality much more than this. I think he can get a little bit better. I think what he can do is increase his floor so that in high stakes games it doesn't completely crumble and he can at least keep it together for his players to at least win the game. You know, better than what went on in like Heroic, for example, when it kind of a lot of crumbling went on. I think the players are better. I will say I think you're correct on the fact that Stan and Yabby aren't the playoffs chokers, universally speaking, that maybe they were in years prior. I think they are improving, and so I actually don't think that that's the reason why it won't work. I think if you look at it practically, I think I have to think to myself, 50% odds they're gonna win one of these big crowd events. How many big crowd events are there? Right? They're not in the Esports World Cup, and in the first place, is it a big crowd event? You know, no, right? No one's gonna attend. So they're not there anyway, so we don't need to worry about it. They're not in Sky Sports Championship. Now that may be a big crowd event because they may be selling the tickets for like 10 rupees, but you know, we'll see.
I think people are being incredibly. Sorry, I'll let you finish first.
Yeah, of course. Cologne, I'm not even gonna. Everyone's gonna be at Cologne. I'm not gonna put them anything more than a playoffs berth, and that's pushing it for me. I'm not gonna push them to be at like anything more than like a Cologne semi-final. I don't think that that's gonna happen. I think then we have what Pro League, and then that's not a crowd event, so cancel that out because I think Astralis could actually win a Pro League, but it doesn't work for your take, so we'll move on. And then we have 4 final, and then 4 final. They're probably gonna be in the 4 final because of the groups and invites and whatever and whatnot. Are they gonna win a 4 final? Now that Spirit is in the Blast system, I find it hard to be a hard time believing that that's gonna be fairly likely. And so now you end up you end up having to hope that like they Astralis go to Rio and like Spirit skip Rio, and like another team has like a bad day and then they win Rio, and then you're like big crowd event Rio. Because I don't think
So
yeah, go on.
I will say, initially my take was that they'd get to the finals of a big crowd S tier
Okay,
event,
well,
but I upgraded it at the last second to winning.
I'll buy if you downgrade it, then you have me. If you upgrade it, I'm gonna call you full of shit. That's my current stance.
Well, let me explain
Go
here,
on.
right? So, I think Device has been improving steadily, frankly, and what people seem to forget is just because it was over, like blameF left in February, he was benched on February 27th, right?
Sure.
I just checked on the page. They've played 5 events with this roster, right? 4 of them came out in 3rd to 4th, and the Blast Premier Spring Final they came out 5th to 6th. It only needs a little extra push, and by the eye test, Stown and
I'd say
Yabby
more than
have been
little, but-
improving over this time. They just need that little push to get into the final.
Yeah, but
is what I was
getting
gonna
into the
say,
final, yeah,
right?
sure, but to win, they need more than a little push. Like Maus needs a little push.
I think no, right. So let me explain my point of view,
Go on.
right?
Yeah, I'm checking some stats in the meantime.
So, yeah. So Stown and Yabby have been steadily improving. I think that their mindset, like of getting anxious in front of big crowds, has been steadily improving. We can see that come out in the stats, and I think in the eye test as well. Some of their games, they've been able to kind of hold up pretty well, even with crowd sharing and stuff. I think the biggest flaw for Astralis right now is definitely their T sides, which sometimes looks great, but other times it looks very repetitive and yeah, like
Device doesn't have a very
pretty
deep
flawed.
playbook, shockingly, as a rookie
But-
IGL.
But that's the point I'm making, right? Device has been IGL for 5 events, and not a single one of them they've come out worse than 6th on it. Right now, you can put 1 or 2 events, but down to like a honeymoon or down to like, you know, just everybody fragging out. But if you're doing that 5 in a row, there's something there, right? Getting to quarters 4 times in a row, like you can't deny that there is something
Yeah,
there
sure.
that enables the
But
consistency,
like, I'm
right?
not arguing your consistency. I think they could make
With a
semi-finals, sure,
month
but
to improve his playbook, right? It's been over a month to improve his playbook since the
yeah, but
player
he's not
break.
improving his
I think
playbook in the
that
player break, is he? Not like really.
why wouldn't he?
Well, like, is he not taking a break? Is he
Why would
grinding
he
this whole
not?
time? Like, is there evidence to suggest that he has been grinding this whole time? I feel like
Check his
Device would.
Instagram.
Yeah, I feel
Let's
like.
see.
It's not about grinding in the games. It's about coming up with better strategies,
But you
right?
need to
And that's
play
going
the
to be the
game. You
job
can't
of the
just like,
coach in the.
sit in the sauna.
That's going to
be
be the
like,
job
oh,
of
I'm
the
coming up with
coach.
better strategies. I'm strategizing. Oh, let me think. Like, you have to play.
You have to play to like
I'm gonna
actually
check Device's
practice
Instagram.
them
Hold
out
on.
and get.
I'm seeing where Device has gone on holiday. I'm curious now. He's not actually posted anything.
Yeah,
I can't tell.
he's.
I'm getting devices face it page up right now.
Go on.
I
We have to
actually don't think
cross-check
this is
this.
implausible. But I actually am on the safe side.
We
I
can't,
actually don't
bro.
think this is
Twitter fucking
implausible.
removed checking likes. Now we can't stalk someone's activity, man.
Damn it. Yeah.
So
No, I
annoying.
think this is actually. I think there are players on Astralis that are like low key cooking. I think I want to shout out Stare.
Yeah.
Very good
But
player.
like, I'm
Yo,
not,
yes,
I'm not
there is.
doubting the premise that they're
Doesn't
a good
buckle under
team.
pressure. Gets to work. I think everyone's gonna get up to speed. I think there's a way it can happen. I think the most
Okay,
likely
so
one, honestly, is the Blast spring final in
It took
Denmark.
a break
I
from
think
2nd of June
they're
to
gonna
10th of
be
June.
they're
It's like
gonna
a
be
week.
very good for that event.
That's
I reckon.
fine.
I think they'll be good for that.
And then he stopped on the 14th of June to the 12th of July. But the thing is, let's face it. No. The thing is, let's face it, right? And the pros practice on like private
yeah, but
servers.
what? Is he
right?
playing private servers and not playing a single FACEIT game? In like,
I mean,
you're stretching the bounds.
he
to
then
make
also played like
you're str-
4 times. Point being,
sure.
right? It's not necessarily him doing all of the strategizing,
What-
right? It's the coach's job to like come up with stuff during the player break,
Checking
right?
Rugger's Instagram now.
He's got to be.
We're really sleuthing this one out. We're gonna find out the answer.
But yeah, no, go on.
I think that there's no chance that they don't come up with, you know, new like they are going to recognize that their strategies, especially on T side, have been lacking, right?
Sure. Yeah.
That's fair.
There's
It's also
no way
mid-round
that they
calling is
don't
pretty
see
weak
that as a
too,
pain
which
point
is a bit
and
unlucky.
see that as something that they need to focus on. And like, yeah, player break is a player break, but don't act like, you know, teams aren't going to spend at least some of that time working on the key pain points which they have. And especially when it's
true.
such a point that it's been costing them, you know, getting to finals,
Yeah.
right?
And I will give
if I
it to
look
you.
at
They
the
aren't
stats-
if they're not playing the World Cup, then the esports World Cup, they can also have time to practice now. So that is another element technically in your favor. But even then, I'm not biting on them winning.
I'm
I
trying
think
to
it's way
find
lower than
the
50%.
BT and T side stats.
I just
for
just
Astralis.
don't think they have a ceiling high enough as a team to go all fire at the same time and win an event like 50% odds. They would need a lot to go in their favor, and that's why I don't think they would need to rely on more than just themselves. They would need to rely on other teams
I mean,
not performing simultaneously.
Astralis Ancient is cracked, right? Their biggest defeat, I just checked, their biggest defeat on this roster is a 19-22 loss to the Mongols.
All I'm hearing is that the Mongols is higher odds than they do.
Yeah, but if you're losing in like triple overtime.
Yeah.
That's...
I'm not denying, but like, here's the thing. I'm not denying that they're good. I'm not even denying that they're like great in like a quality of Counter-Strike sense. I just don't think they have that final push. And I think a lot of teams do have that final push in ways that, like, I don't know if in a final, grand final, they're going to beat, like, the top three, like the top dogs at the current juncture. I don't think they're gonna like. If we're talking about Vitality, FaZe, Spirit in a grand final, how many grand finals they're gonna get to, and then how many grand finals can against these kinds of teams they win? They need hope that it's like a grand final against like NaVi or VP, someone less like beatable in the grand final for me to
I
be
just
convinced.
disagree with you there. I
Would you
genuinely
put
just like.
you put like in against those top three
I'm
teams?
not saying that they win 100% of the time.
I'm saying 50% of
right?
the time.
I'm
You
not
think they
saying
win?
that. I'm saying
Because that's what you're saying,
that-
right? Effectively.
I'm saying pre-player break. Sure, maybe not even maybe. Pre-player break, yeah, they aren't at that point where they can reach finals, right? But that's the point of this being a take, right? I think that over the player break, they will have taken the time to work out their key pain points, that being especially like Stairs' performance in certain parts. Like he's obviously much more of a support player, but he's definitely been a like teams have focused on the sites that he's holding and the angle and the parts that he's
Bro
having.
needs to improve his floor just a little bit as well.
Yeah, well, not just that, but also just have the rotates, right? There's been a few times, especially on Nuke, where teams have straight up just got past them on the rotates and got in gaps which they shouldn't be leaving. And I think that that's a pain point that they have on their CT side. And for their T sides, I think that there's a lot of strategies which they can add to their playbook and that they can definitely practice on a lot with them not being in the ESWC. That we're going to see, maybe not on the first event that they're back, coming back into it, warming up, because a lot of the other teams will have had ESWC to warm up. But I think we're going to see them level up this season.
Yeah, well, at least we got one controversial take because we have a spectrum of beliefs on this one. We have Heseltine
Someone
going
here
like
has
in
to be a
between.
supporter
I'm
of
just
Astralis.
straight up denying it. You're in the 50% thing, I think. I mean, we've
I'll give it 35. 35 it can
he's
happen.
I can't be on board with it. I would have agreed with you if it was a 10%, but that's just my bias. Anyway, I think. Listen, I've made my disbelief clear. Okay, I don't think Device has it.
Yeah.
Ceiling wise, for calling ceiling wise, I don't think the players together have it calling like ceiling play individual wise versus the top teams that I believe they would have to beat to win a trophy. And that's just where I stand on 50%. I think it's way lower. But I think I have a lot of belief in like the top teams. Even though I said Mouse will crumble, but I would take Mouse over Astralis in a final. And that's like maybe that's like going against my own take, but that's just where I stand. Anyway, I think we've extracted a lot from that. We move on.
Yeah.
Okay, I think Heseltine, you're up with your 10%, right? We've finished at 50%.
Yeah, I think there's a 10% chance that JL will win back-to-back major MVPs, and here's why. Right, we know by now how NaVi operate in terms of like what they care about in terms of events. Like it's kind of like they got the Carrigan philosophy. They're like, yeah, these smaller events don't need like a big boot camp. We can kind of just cruise into the playoffs of these. We won't really mind if we win or not. But we know that the culture that NaVi have is they care big time about these big time prestige events, Colognes, Kados, Majors. We're going to see them really grind to get to this before the Shanghai Major. They're going to go for it. 10% because I think if NaVi somehow go back to back with this lineup, I'm assuming they're going to run it back with this lineup given that Simple's not on the team. So I think he could, and why I say JL specifically will win back-to-back major MVPs is because we know from statistical analysis he is a big game player. He will show up when it matters. He's kind of been cruising, and by his own admission, he's kind of had like demotivation problems, which I think is really worrying given how young he is as a pro. But when the chips are down, it could happen. NaVi also just have a fantastic T side where they can like just make miracles happen, or they can bring back lots of comebacks because of this. Alexi's always in his bag when it counts. So I think, NaVi going back-to-back JL major MVP 10% is actually not impossible. I think 10% I actually think is a reasonable
Okay.
reasonable
do you wanna call him insane or should I call him insane? Who's gonna go first?
So first off, the laugh there was because I misheard you and thought you said JKS.
Oh no,
Hell
JKS is
no.
100%, but like let's move on.
Come on now.
Yeah, what?
I would like to point you to HLTV's page
Mm-hmm.
of JL and take a look at the trophies, or rather trophy, that he has
Yeah,
on
it's just one.
I mean, it is a
his
major, so you know we're
page.
kind of supporting him here so far.
Got one.
JKS has more trophies.
Yeah, because he's a better player. Move on, like.
Yeah, all time, that's
Oopsie
fair,
has
but not now. I don't know
Oopsie
about
has
that.
more.
Hey, who knows? He might top frag in the liquid. I can't even say that with a straight face. Anyway, yeah. Finish your
Oopsie has
point.
more fucking trophies than this boy.
That's a man.
I will
right
admit,
there.
he.
It's no boy.
I will admit that he does seem to have a switch which just flips for not even majors, just major finals. Like, seriously, he was being carried all the way up until like the semi-finals of the major, and then he just decided to pop the fuck off. Like, maybe quarterfinals, but you know what I mean. Like, he was doing pretty shocking, if I remember correctly, in the in the Copenhagen like groups, and it was only the final. Okay, 1.14. That is not telling the whole story because he definitely.
He had some good maps
Like,
in the
eye
group
test
stage. I'm
wise-
just looking now. He was cooking the Mongols. He cooked G2.
Yeah, but eye test wise, like it was not. Maybe I'm thinking of IM, to be honest.
You may be,
I am
because he was
also that-
actually like JL did deserve that major MVP big time because
Yeah,
the
yeah.
board,
I'm thinking
he was
of
really
IM
good.
because IM was the only one who leveled up like major finals straight up.
Oh my god, he cooked Spirit as well in the group stage, even though they lost. That's crazy. That nuke game. Do you remember that nuke game where he literally was just unplayable? I'm saying it can happen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I can't explain why it can happen.
Well,
really.
I mean, if you can't explain,
So
why it
that's
can
only for
happen, then I'll
JL to
take it.
answer.
Sure.
But he can just keep. He can.
The
just,
reason
when
it's
he's
not
feeling
going to
it, he just
happen
rolls
is because
people. I don't know
Mongols
why.
or Spirit are going to win the major.
True, but like,
Ooh.
okay, I need a. I guess I can't put on a Serbian accent and say you're crazy and insane. Do a Kassad cosplay.
You're crazy.
Yes. Are you insane?
Jesus is watching.
Yes, exactly. But I'm actually gonna swivel this into like I'm not this is like an unrelated take. I'm not putting a percentage on this. This is just a vibes based opinion. I think this next major we're gonna have an MVP who's not the winner. I think that's a high possibility, and I think you would need JL in that kind of position. Like I think HOTV, for example, for the major, I think they do put quite a bit of emphasis on trying to make sure, like if you're adjusting for the team that won the major, they're putting a lot of things in their favor because it kind of just
if you are an MVP who doesn't win the event, you have to get a
yes, but I think
it's like you have to get points
never
two
happened at a
above the
major
next
before.
best.
But
It's never
exactly.
happened, even
That's
though there have been
that's why I'm not
examples where
putting
it
a
should have.
percentage on
Didn't
it.
Simple get MVP?
Who?
There's
I
never
swear
been
Simple got
a
MVP
there's
at
never been
major,
a
he didn't
player
win.
that's
he didn't
lost and won the MVP at major.
It's always been
Never
a winning
happened.
team. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
If I'm correct, but like we're
That's
building
100% correct,
a culture of players who have a lot of high ratings. We got a good top 3 going. I don't know about G2 being in a major final. I'm gonna say that's not happening with Snax, but anyway, the crazier things have happened.
I mean, crashes can happen.
Yeah,
we can have all it takes is 3 crashes in a row. Can they beat the previous record?
Exactly, but like if we're talking about things that could delusionally happen, right? I think even if NaVi, we have decent enough seeding now to the point where we have 2 top teams facing in major finals most of the time, if not all the time, right? I think that's a fair assumption. So if it's NaVi versus, let's say, FaZe, then I would give you your 10% take, and I would say, you know what, have free reign. If Spirit or Vitality are in the major final, I actually think that donk or Zywoo gets the MVP regardless. Unless Zywoo goes like 0.5. which I may have been critical as I would, but I don't think he's doing that.
We need to check the air quality in Shanghai.
That's not very good, is it? So
No, it really isn't.
They do clean it up for big
that's
events.
true, but they're gonna
though.
have a filter in for the stadium, surely, right? So I think like if Spirit makes it there, not even giving them the chance that they're gonna beat JL in the final. In which case, obviously, he's not winning it from that other side. He's not on the other side of the equation. He's not him. But
I mean, honestly, I don't see if NaVi versus Spirit happens, I don't see NaVi winning.
yeah, but like I could imagine like an Alexi B masterclass, Chopper chokes, Donk carries crazy, Shiro chokes. You can picture a vision. You got Doctor Strange.
It needs a
impossible,
lot
is
to
it?
happen. I see why you put it at 10%. I'll say that.
Sure. Yeah, but I just don't think I'm pivoting off of that, not into my take, but into my like opinion of it being a non-winner MVP. I think that is actually gonna make it harder for that 10% to be happening. I think Donk's gonna put out some crazy performances. Shanghai is pretty close to Siberia, it's
crowd.
hometown buff, home crowd buff, sure. But that I just don't think it's happening. I think but he also does have to fight with his own team, and I think he is the player that's going to show up the most. But if NaVi is to win the major, they're going to need more than just what they did the last time, in my opinion. And so
They'll need Wonderful to
yes,
do really
exactly.
well.
And then
They're
they'll
gonna
have to
need
fight with
AM to
Wonderful.
show
So
up.
I think you compound the percentages so much as against him. I think this is a 1% and not a 10%.
The thing I have going in my favor, of course, is the fact that JL is just randomly one of the
Yes.
best stage
You
players in
you
the
have
world.
vibes in your favor, and that's it.
Exactly, that's the classic analysis from me, just vibes only.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Still,
He does just decide to pop off sometimes. Like, it's so weird.
it's true. Anyway, I think we've exhausted this one. Should we move on?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. This is my 10% take. This is the one I pulled out of my ass, and I'm gonna fight vehemently to believe it myself. Because this is not a 10% chance, this is a 10% agree. This is a hot take. Alright? So I think if blameF wants to make it back to the top, he should IGL. He needs
Oh,
to
God.
IGL.
Fuck you. Actually, fuck you.
I think that's his only chance.
No, like,
let me go.
Holy
Let me
shit.
go. Okay, so first of all, but buyout aside, I think clearly his individual form alone was not enough to convince teams that were higher ranked than Fnatic to pick him up. He had to go down the ladder to Fnatic as an individual player, not even as an IGL to start with, right? So there's some nonsense going on there as well. The whole narrative has always been, he's a fantastic individual talent player. Why is he in-game leading when he could provide all that he provides to a team and not be the IGL? He could just be an anchor, he could be a passive player, and he could still take over games and be a talent without all that. But I think he's actually better served being an IGL. First of all, clearly it doesn't tank his individual game that much, right? He's showcased all his skill as an IGL across these years. He can do it without tanking his numbers. I think that's a very valuable thing nowadays. Secondly, top IGLs, and top is kind of, we're on the borderline here, but I can convince people, I think. They're in a very short supply. I think if your selling point is fragging IGL, anchor player, passive player, and if you ensure that you don't do a down signing, and you ensure that you have aggressive players to counteract the fact that you have blameF in your team, why can't he be the caller, right? Part of the problem in Astralis was that Stan was uncomfortable. I don't think that the huge emphasis, and maybe see if, Astralis fan, maybe you can counteract me here, and I think you maybe. I don't think that blameF's at near the end of his time in Astralis, I don't think his calling was the primary issue. I think it was the synergy in the team that was mainly a part of how the team was built that was the issue. And I don't think Device is doing insanely better to the point where I'm convinced that like blameF shouldn't call again. And obviously the org is going to prioritize their new investment on the Stabby combo in terms of blameF, contract maybe towards the end. They can try and offload him, and they did offload him. So, from a financial perspective, it worked. But I'm gonna double down here. I'm going to list off a few teams. Why shouldn't blameF IGL G2? He could be the passive player. They got some aggro riflers. They got some rotators. He can make that team a terrifying piece of firepower. Why can't,
Just to
yeah,
jump
sure,
in,
go ahead.
I'll let you continue. Just as a quick comment, this is how much I disagree. I would take Hooksy over blameF for G2. You continue.
Well, listen, I might even agree with that. We can have both, but anyway. But then my take doesn't work. But anyway, so going down the list, forget Astralis because apparently something's going on over there. Why can't blameF be the IGL of Vitality? Think about it, right? Think about this vision.
Fair point.
blameF takes on the anchor spots. You have Flames and Mezzi. They play scissors, paper, rock or something. They decide who's going to be the anchor and which one of them is going to move the rotator. I would take Flames rotator, right? You can have blameF and Spinks on the extremities, and then try and move Spinks, into something that he can actually do something. Because I think Spinks has been doing a bit less than he perhaps should, and I think it would be a fantastic upgrade over what you have right now with Apex. I just think the roles would actually fit. I don't think that it would be a huge tactical downgrade. In fact, I think it may even be pretty much the same tactical level, but it's a firepower boost and the roles make sense. So I think if you're going to sell yourself, blameF, if you're going to sell yourself, I'm talking to you, blameF, you're watching this right now. Sell yourself as a one-size-fits-all package, including IGL. You'll be able to make your way into top teams by essentially supplanting the IGL and you're essentially going to be like, you want Perfecto, right? I'm Perfecto, but I'm also an IGL and I'm a top player. And I don't have, that Russian, maybe a bit of a brand risk, maybe some visa issues, I'm from Denmark. I'm a big buff guy. I can look cool for you. That's a bonus. I think he could also do it as an individual. I'm not disputing that. But he also has experience as an IGL. Why would you waste all that experience to be a player when IGLs are already in short supply? Like, I just think it makes way more sense for his career if he wants to win top events and top trophies and move to top teams. I just think it makes way more sense. What do you think?
Okay, so before anything else, I was actually going to make a video on why blameF is a terrible IGL. The only reason I didn't is a week later he was fired. And I thought that everybody would have, come round to my point of view, which I've been calling him a fucking bad IGL for like a year. I thought people would finally understand that point, but clearly I'm wrong. So I might have to actually make that video now.
You may.
So, first off, calling is not necessarily the issue, right? The issue is how he utilizes his players. He was consistently, and it was infuriating to watch, every time in matches, you would see him put himself in. He calls around himself, all right? He makes it so that the team goes in positions which aren't necessarily beneficial for those players, but set him up for the plays he does, like the flanks, the aggressive pushes on CT side. I've seen it multiple times. I remember specifically an Ancient game where he got Yabi or Stauna, I think, on the B site to help cover his back on mid, because he was going for an aggressive play. He doesn't get the kill, gets killed, and I think it was Vitality they were going against or someone, took the B site. Wait, is it B on the right or A on the right? I always forget. A on the right, isn't it? Ancient.
Yes, from CT side, A on the right.
Yeah, sorry, A site. And they just took A site for free because Stown had been called to help blameF out, basically. The other issue is, it's like a lot of his criticism happened when Stown and Yabi were on the side and they weren't getting the positions which they should have had because he was taking them. That's a fair point, but people forget that he was the IGL for like a year before then. And the exact same things were happening with every single player that they subbed in. He was always, constantly having every play be focused around how he did things and kind of focusing very much around him, honestly. I think it's a very egotistical way of playing. This is why I say I think he would be worse than Hooksy as a slot-in replacement as an IGL, because I genuinely don't think that he would be able to utilize Nico and Monacy to their fullest potential. I think that for all his faults, Hooksy knows that Nico and Monacy are better than him, and actually will utilize that, right?
Sure.
blameF did not do that. blameF has Device on his team and consistently, sets up those positions where Device was not getting the kind of support that he needed, just kind of letting him out by himself. Now, obviously, you can't say whether that's, on purpose or not, but from the kind of interviews afterwards, they don't seem to be much a fan of blameF. I don't think it was Device's decision to be kind of left with very little support, even though he's theoretically like there's two kind of schools of mindset about it. You say, oh, you've got a big, star player, he can be on himself, he can hold these positions by himself, whatever. And the other position is that no, you want to give as many resources as you can to the star player because that sets them up even better. And blameF seemed to be very much the position holder of the former. It's there's I need to go back. I've not watched the demos in a long time since he left, but I'd need to look back at it to go into more depth. But genuinely, he should not touch IGLing again ever. Like, he can have
Hmm.
decent strategies. His mid calling, I will admit, is pretty good, but his set pieces were bland. And when he wasn't feeling it, the mid calling was atrocious, especially when people got used to the fact that he is just going to play a call around himself. And as such, they knew that, oh, he's probably going to go for a flank. He's going to draw in his own teammates to help him trade for this flank. And that means that there's going to be a weakness on either the A or B site, which constantly happened. And they were constantly doing retakes because of it. It was. Sorry, I am going into a massive rant, but yeah.
No, I think what you're saying makes sense. I think if I'm gonna, or maybe this is like an unallowable addendum. I think he needs like a strong voice. I think he needs a secondary caller to not just yes and let him do everything he wants. I think a little bit of flexibility would go a long way in making this make a lot more sense, because I think like in that G2 example, I'm thinking back on it now. First of all, everyone's been saying, people have been criticizing HooXi for the longest time, saying he doesn't, the players would be just as good without him. And then other people are then saying, if you're saying if you slot blameF in, it would somehow make, Nico and m0NESY play worse, then maybe that's true. I think it might be a little bit true, but I also think you can have Nico push back and m0NESY, let m0NESY be independent, and it would actually, I think it could make sense more so than it not making sense. I'm gonna put it that way. But in terms of like the crux of the take being that he should IGL rather than not IGLing, I think also another kind of underrated perhaps aspect of this is if he is the leadership figure of the team, I think people will also be more willing to accept the way he plays, because it seems as well that like seeing this like beta across the map, and it's like this big buff guy, the psychological aspect. Other people have talked about it. They don't like blameF because he's like a big jacked guy, and then they're just little gaming nerds or whatever, some other stuff like that. I think if he's the IGL, he would be able to command that kind of respect, and his playstyle wouldn't be as criticized, and then that would also help him get into teams and actually make it back to the top. Because I can't think of an explanation, like individual skill-wise, why he wouldn't join some of these other teams. And maybe I'll be proven wrong. Maybe after Fnatic, we'll see him back at the top again. But I just think, in terms of selling yourself to teams, if you sell yourself as like, build around me as an IGL, as a package like that, rather than find players that are willing to accept that I play like this as a lurk player, that I'm gonna be a little bit infuriating to watch when they die and they're spectating and they're like, this fucking guy, why is he here, bro? I died like 50 seconds ago. There's like, that aspect as well. If it's the IGL, maybe you're a bit more willing to accept it, like it's all part of his plan. Maybe he also maybe he needs like a Cadian style buy-in. Who knows?
Maybe, but I mean, to be clear, I think the narrative around him being a beta is kind of overplayed.
Well, yeah, but
it's not that he was a beta exactly. It's more that he actively his IGL calling style very much put a lot of the resources of how the team plays around himself, and that left a lot less resources for the other players. Say for instance on Vertigo, you've got the anchors. blameF would be constantly pushing to go for the flank to B site, but that means that Stan was left basically on his own a lot in holding B, which is
Sure, but do you
notoriously
think
very hard to hold.
blameF's playstyle changes that much, even if he's not IGL? Like, do you think blameF
Massively. Like, part of the I think he's a very good aimer, but I think that his style of, I think he's got the kind of naive approach of IGLing that maybe it's ego behind it, maybe it's just like not necessarily understanding, but it seems to be that he wants to be the star player and the IGL at the same time, and that's something that you almost never can really do, and especially it's even more difficult as a rifler compared to an AWPer, I would say, because when you're a rifler, to set yourself up for things, you almost certainly need people around with you
the
for
whole system
trades
has to
and
rotate
etc
around.
etc. Whereas with AWPs, at least you have that kind of one-shot ability, which means that if you are hitting your shots and making the aiming and making the calls right, you don't need to set up like you need utility around you, but you don't necessarily need
Like
people
the
following
rest of the
behind you.
system can still be more in place than if something else has to be the case.
Yeah,
and I understand.
and I don't think that you can be a star rifler and an IGL at the same time. And he was very much calling around the idea that he is still a star rifler when he was IGLing on Astralis, which is just not how you should do things.
Heseltine,
In
do
my
you have
opinion.
any thoughts on this?
I'll jump in on this. I actually think if you even ask blameF himself, he'd probably disagree and
Of
say he
course, but
probably
I'm
doesn't think
saying
he
he
can
should.
IGL. But here's the thing: I actually am higher on Fnatic in terms of like a long-term project than I think you'd assume. I don't think Crims has got much more of a shelf life, but you can definitely do stuff with Matisse and blameF. I don't think Body and Afro are gonna be
Right,
there
so
much longer.
we got two out
But
of five.
you can definitely build off those two names. Like that's not a bad start.
Oh
In
yeah, I'm
like a
not saying he's
year's
a bad
time, they could
player, to
actually
be
be
clear.
quite good. And maybe not top 5. I think top 10 they could actually get there within a year. I think that's doable.
I mean, they got to
Definitely.
make a lot of moves for sure. But
Exactly, but I think Keita's on semi-fraud watch in terms of what he's doing as a coach. Oh, I can't remember if he's actually GMing the team at the same time. I have
they
to
have a
assume there must
GM?
be some level.
Isn't
I have to assume
Samuelson
there's some
GMing?
level. Maybe. I have to assume he has a lot of influence because I think he obviously has that connection with blameF, which is why they got him on the team. But I'm not sure if Fnatic are done making moves this offseason.
Samuelson is the
Waru
team
2K.
director. Keita is the strategic coach. So
Okay, so that probably
Samuelson
implies
is the team. I assume Samuelson is the
that I'd assume Keita's making a lot of these
yeah.
decisions or like having a lot of influence. But I think Fnatic aren't actually done making moves. I think they're gonna get Waru 2K. That's my read on it because he's not going to the Australian team.
No.
He's not going to Liquid. He's off Monty, which can only really leave one option, really, counter. He's not going to go to Bay, is he? He's not going to Bay. Unless he somehow is, which would be
but
insane.
they're doing pretty well on Bay right now, aren't they?
Yeah, but I think you can if it is assumed that Afro's out and Warrior's in and they take Body off IGL, that ain't even a bad team.
Yeah, but listen.
But your point is getting to the top, and to also add to that, I think if blameF had declined this offer and waited maybe until this off season, to see what Vitality was saying, what G2 was saying, he could have gone either of those teams. If he was either of those teams' 5th or 4th guy, then that is an insane upgrade. I think for both teams.
I don't
disagree.
But I think there's other aspects as to why, and maybe I think I probably eventually can be proven wrong. Like a season when blameF gets an opportunity as a player, if he can play alongside one of these other IGLs. But I do think there's some out of game aspects that are perhaps holding him back that may not be there if he sells himself as an IGL. But that's just what I think.
That's fair.
Yeah, and also this is a side take. With the way that Waro and SD1, the whole thing that IGL swapping, blameF might just take over that role if Waro joins.
That's also true.
Like,
If that's the implied move, you know.
like Waro joins this season at the end of the season, like midway through, blameF is like, I'm taking this. Like, Waro, shut up. I can see that happening, but yeah. I think Sif might explode if we talk about this a little bit too much. All right, Sif, we got your 10%, right, to end us.
Yeah.
Go
Okay.
on.
So my 10% is, and I'm back and forth on whether this should be the next event or the next 3 events. G2 will have a honeymoon period of not having Nexa and Hooksy, and will either reach finals or win one of the next 3 events they attend.
Ooh, I like this. I actually like this, and I'll explain why I like this.
Go on.
Because yes, there are obviously concerns about T-side calling and roles, but we
And
saw what happened
firepower,
at
yeah,
Dallas. Yeah, we saw what happened at Dallas. No Hooksy buff is crazy. I don't know if like Nico Monacy just turned into like actual demons. And
They just had the fucking weights taken
exactly.
off.
They had the burden. They had the psychological burden of not having one. Actually, to be fair, they just had more deadweight players, but they were slightly better at positioning themselves or whatever. So that just helped.
Yeah,
but I think
Maui
I think
take, sure.
people in general are like way too down on G2. I think people are acting like they're gonna go to like tier 2 with this team. And I'm like, I just can't. There's no way they could actually be like worse.
Well,
They probably they'll probably like stay at the same
they
level.
Can be worse.
I just can't
They can
see it. I
always be
just can't
worse.
see how they could be like any worse than they were, even though they were actually
think
quite
that
consistent.
this is why
Fourth place is actually pretty good. A lot of these events.
I do want to say I
But
did
I kind of-
specifically
I'm
say
on board with
honeymoon,
this.
which means I do think it's going to get worse
Yeah, sure,
after
but
that win.
okay, so you're
Yeah,
saying
no,
okay,
I'm also
let me
on board with you
understand
that
your
too.
let me understand your 10%. Are you saying was it like in the next 3 events, either final of the next 3 or win one? What is your? Can you explain?
Yeah, so I think that I mean it's kind of my first vibes based one, really. But I mean we've seen the effect of honeymoons on players, on teams.
I was looking to clarify, like, what is your metric that you're looking to hit? Just because I didn't quite understand.
Okay, next 3 events that they attend, they're gonna reach finals or even win.
I mean, if they
event.
reach finals, then like that's the lower tier. Like, if you don't even include or win, you know what I mean? Like if they reach the finals, then you don't need to say or win, because you like.
I guess I'll keep it. I'll keep it at reach the finals. Just because I want to be a bit realistic, but I could see them actually pretty easily winning with a honeymoon. Because I mean, let's see what the next.
I'm trying to check. What are their next 3 events? Just to, they're in the esports
World Cup, Blast Premier Fall, and IM.
Are you counting the groups? That's not really an event. I wouldn't let you can give a pass on that because you can't win it really. You can come in the top, I guess.
All right. So then it's World Cup, Cologne, or Pro League.
Finals.
I could see him winning that. I could see him winning Pro League.
I'm gonna give you final call: winning or finals. Which one?
Finals, just because there's bit of G2 hate in me. Like, actually, the G2 hate has left now that Hooksy has. But I don't know. I see Snax. I see Malbs. Malbs is a young rising talent. I think he can counteract the Snax sort of style of things. Yeah.
Okay, let me.
The only reason I'm nah, fuck it. I'm gonna say. The analyst in me has to stick with finals. The analyst in me has to stick with finals.
Even so, I think
so only a 10% chance they reach 10% chance in the next 3 events.
Yeah, one final next 3 events, 10% chance to reach a final.
That actually seems quite low. They do have the best player in the world.
That's true.
He's on like a 2018 year.
Yeah, but
Uh,
consider
seen
the
crazy
next,
things
all of the
happen.
next events that they are in. Spirit are also in. Vitality are
it's true,
also
but they
in.
don't need to
FaZe are
beat them
also
to
in.
reach the final.
Exactly. Other things can happen to those teams. You never
Exactly.
know.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
though.
but like Navi, FaZe, Vitality, Spirit, they're all in this next 4 events that they're in.
I could
Astralis are in the
see
next
them.
3 events. I could see them getting out in like quarters. It's stuff like that. That's why
Yeah,
I'm kind of
it's
putting.
tough. I think if I take this, if I talk about Snax, I actually think we're not ready to see the individual level Snax displays if Snax takes Hooksy's roles. I think we're not ready. Like, I don't think it's gonna be as pretty as people are saying. He's got a
It's
one,
not going to be very good.
like he's got a 1.03 last 3 months, but he's playing good roles. So like, what happens when he goes into Hooksy roles? He tries to do full Hooksy stuff on CT and T side. Like, it's not gonna be pretty. It's not gonna be lovely, is it? He's gonna be at most like a little bit better than Hooksy, and like that's fine. That's what that's what people was looking for apparently this whole time. And calling wise, I think if he is calling full time, it'll be a downgrade. Not like huge, but like big enough to I think you would notice it. But they'll also be able to pull some BS rounds with Nico and Monacy. So you have that in your pocket to make one of these runs that makes the take work, right? I think then if we discuss Nexa for Malbs, even if Malbs is, screwing himself over a lot with this move, by the way, perfectly fine to take it because you're obviously going to get salary bump and you're going to get chances to win. Like, whenever, just to unrelated, but to frame it, because people have been saying, like, criticizing the move. When you're Malbs, you always take it because of the
Oh,
boost,
100%.
right? Obviously.
You don't turn this
You don't
down.
turn it down, but for framing of his role in his career, it may end up sucking, even though this is the right decision. But he is still going to be better than Nexa at this role. Like, he's going to be worse than he could be, but he's going to be better than Nexa, I think, just individually. It's not like a high bar. Nexa was sub.
In terms of sheer shooting, he
Yes.
definitely will be. That's not even up for debate.
Yeah, but like in terms, he might. But the thing is, he might have a higher rating, but the team might actually play worse on CT side.
I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see how Malbs performs in front of a crowd.
Yeah, but then you get in front of a crowd first, though.
Has he had much?
No,
of,
he hasn't had any. I don't think.
Yeah. I mean,
his best result would have been that.
He was at IM Dallas. He was at IM Dallas.
Playoffs at IM Dallas.
13th to 16th. They lost to
That ain't a
Heroic.
playoff.
That's not a playoff. It's not a crowd, mate.
No.
This is the thing people haven't actually kind of really discussed.
The thing is, the
Malbs is a bit of an onliner, low-key.
Yes, he was for a long time.
He
still
has
is.
never qualified for a major. Now, that might not 100% be his fault, and I'd have to look at all the stats and who he played against and whatnot, and whether he was actually expected to win some of these games. But a player that's like this hyped usually has done something notable, like on LAN, to carry their team in some kind of capacity.
Pretty, and he's not even in his role.
Never has.
Actually, last 6 months, LAN 1.23. It's only all time that it's
isn't that including
really
the
I'm
EPL?
just saying, this guy might not have beaten the online allegations just yet. I think that is something to be concerned about a bit.
1.21.
But he's still better than Nexa, and that's not
Didn't
even
he just
close.
play like 1 or 2 big events?
It's
yeah,
not
he's
many.
only played 2.
Yeah, okay.
But he's never been to a major.
How many major qualifying events have Mel played in? Let me check. Is he obviously?
He did a 1.33 at CS2 Major Copenhagen. That's pretty.
I'm trying to think of the events he didn't go. I think he's done at least
that's
2.
the fucking RMR versus American teams.
Yeah,
Okay, this is not looking
if he didn't
good
farm
for
the
him.
Americans RMR, he wouldn't have been picked up by G2. Like, you gotta have some level of standards, but then they're gonna have Snax, so forget. But like, okay.
I am Katowice playing. He got 1.15.
He was playing.
I forget.
He was playing in Team 1.
Not a good team.
That was a while ago, so like you can't really put that much stock in Team 1's results. Team 1 came in last place, and they lost.
We'll have to see. Really, it's unproven newbie versus.
Checking this. He bottom fragged in the first game against Furia. I mean, it's Furia, and then he top frag, but with the same rating as his bottom frag. They got dumpstered by Imperial with bolts. But that was in CS:GO, so forget it. If we're talking the Copenhagen, why didn't they qualify? I mean, they lost that. Oh yeah, they lost a legacy.
With the last major qualifier, they were playing with their coach, to be fair. So that's not entirely fair by me.
He did play really well.
But it is a fact.
He hit 1.28 in their losing game. their elimination game, so you can't say it's his fault
Mhm.
really. So
Yeah.
that aside, I mean, you can't really put much on him for not making it to the major. He hasn't really had that many opportunities yet, so that's kind of not relevant in this. But if in terms of the actual tag, 10% to make one final. If I'm considering the 3 events being EWC, Cologne, and what EPLs, that's the 3, right? That are coming.
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah. EPL has
I
such
actually think though that's quite harsh. Those odds. I think it's more like.
I actually
30.
think it might be just on. I think they're gonna have the bracket's gonna be pretty because it's cutthroat-ish in the esports World Cup. It's gonna be pretty hard for them, and plus it's their debut. I think honeymoon on debut. Maybe I think it may be like the second event or third event, and then it'll fall off. I don't think they're gonna pop off right off the bat, like immediately. But and then Cologne final, no chance in my opinion. And then you have the highest odds is going to be a Pro League, right? To make a final. But Pro League, the thing is, Pro League has such a high like sample size of games that they have to play. I think they'll trip eventually.
Hey, you got to take down the demons of Pro League Mouse
Exactly.
Sports, which is just
No,
apparently
they
the
don't
new
need to take
We
down
Play
Mouse to make the
Academy
final,
League.
but
I
like,
just realised I was muted.
oh no,
Oh, unlucky.
that's fine. That's fine. I just think they have obstacles in each event, in my opinion. I think Cologne, they would need to win a
Yeah.
semi-final in front of a crowd to make it to the final. I think that's not happening. I think the format in terms of how being eliminated in the Esports World Cup means it's going to be really hard to make it to the final for them. And I think the sheer sample size, I think it's going to be pretty, like, I think I can see G2, like, tripping over and lose. They could lose to M80 again with Lake. If they're in Pro League, which I assume they are, because everybody is apparently, right? But like I could see that happening across the number of series they have to play. They would need to keep that honeymoon for so long to make it to that final, and I think they're gonna trip over.
I mean, the events are pretty close to one another, aren't
The
they?
strongest chance they have is at this World Cup because they're not. No one's going to have any footage of how they play,
True.
just besides some like
I'm actually
face
gonna,
it
I'm
demo.
actually
Yeah.
gonna agree with you. I think 10% is actually fair because I think that's just about where I would say a honeymoon to get a grand final. Oh god, I just realized how insufferable it's
Yeah.
gonna be on Twitter and stuff if they make a grand final. It's gonna be worse than it was before.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have snacks believers. We're gonna have Big Apple enjoyers in full force if that happens.
Snicker Chad.
Snacks. Oh no. We're gonna have snack. We're gonna but Snacks' face will probably look more appropriate on the Giga Chad, like photoshopped. It would fade. It would structurally fit maybe, but that's a different topic. I think it makes complete sense, to be honest.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm in agreement, but I'd give it like I think Monacy has enough help to actually make a grand final appearance with this team. I think he's got more of like a 30%
How many
chance.
grand finals did G2 make previously, right? And is it better or worse now? These are kind of
I'd say better.
better.
It just has to be, right?
Has to
Yeah.
be better. I wouldn't say has to be better. It does not have to be better. You'd be thankful if they are the same to start.
I think if they can get to a final of an event with like in almost a 3v5 with the quality of players they were with, I think they can definitely make a final with this 5-man lineup within 3 events.
They need Malbs to not shit the bed in a completely new situation to them. That's what they need to make it, I think. And by not shit the bed, I just mean higher than 1.00. That's all I ask for, and then 10%. I think you buy it. Because I think Hunter's gonna do the exact same thing he's been doing the whole time. I don't think we're gonna see anything new. Like he's gonna play like a 1.06 rated game until they finally bench him. I don't think he's getting much better. He'll have like he's the flamey now of this team. Like
That's so true. His free agency's coming up. I'm pretty sure within like 6 months. So
yeah, but he's gonna take
he's playing for a contract. That's something also to
I think
consider.
he's taking a pay cut to stay.
I don't think he's. I'd have to double check this, but I think Nico and Hunter are still on the same extension they signed 2 years ago.
They should be.
And I don't think any kind of more financial stuff has happened.
Yeah, but
So,
like when
we'll
they're
see.
renegotiating, I think he might try. It depends on the whole Nico Monesi discussion that we had last time, right? Like,
Yeah.
but I think that about wrap it up. I think we've covered pretty much
Think
much
so.
everything. All right. Well, I almost did my YouTube outro. That would have been terrible. But
What's up,
like
gamers?
and subscribe. Click the link. Oh yeah, true. What I should mention is if now if you're just a random viewer, so use the Thorin term. If you're a pleb viewer, which I guess is all of us technically, but
Yeah.
if you're a pleb viewer, maybe don't follow these instructions. But if you're if you're watching this and you're not in my Discord and you want to try, you think you got what it takes to spitball some absolute fire, and you're thinking to yourself, my 50% take will be way more reasonable, way more 50%. Join the Discord, and then we'll see. I'm not making any promises because you know how it goes with people randomly joining Discords, but we'll see. Is all I'm trying to say. If you want a chance to join, though, be a guest. We're hiring now. I'm not paying you anything. You're literally being paid in exposure. So take the offer. Is all I'm trying to say. Anyway, yeah. Hope it was good.